sem sofrer com isso. your host. Oh no. Where are we? Oh no. It's gonna. There we go.
The best way to get.
Okay, stop that. We don't need to hear that. Anyway, guys, how y'all doing? I am Silentkaster, your host. Thanks so much for coming out today. For anybody that has, I appreciate it. We're going to be talking a little bit about quite a few things today. We've got some events that have happened this week that have just caught my interest, and I want to talk about it, give a little bit of commentary. We will be back with the full setup probably next week. I plan to set up the computer on Tuesday. I was going to do everything this past week. Unfortunately, with me being in Jacksonville the whole time and I was out all day yesterday, I didn't do it this morning because I had a lot of stuff to do. So yeah, I think Tuesday I'll be setting up everything and hopefully have a good setup so that way we can just get that done and not have to stream from this laptop anymore, which is annoying because I only have the one screen, obviously. I mean, I could make it into a couple screens, but it's just kind of annoying to set up, especially because I do use my laptop for work sometimes, and so yeah, I don't want to be unhooking it, rehooking it up, etc. So anyway, we should be on a good setup next week. I also want to let you all know I've been having a lot of problems with the internet today. It's just been going in and out all day. So if I start dropping frames or you see me drop for a while, just let me know. It should just be temporary. But it's just been like, it'll go out for like 15 seconds and then come back. So please bear with me on that. Anybody that has Spectrum knows these lovely issues that Spectrum likes to have. So anyway, let's go ahead and first cover our first story, which is social media. And y'all know how much I love social media, because it's just such a great tool, right? Social media is just such a great tool. It's definitely for people that want to lose as few brain cells as possible. So, social media is definitely the way to go. And, the reason for that being is because they like to say that you can socialize with people. And what social media actually does is it socializes you, meaning that it will give you certain parameters and whatnot that you can speak within. Which is part of the reason that I always say it generally tends to benefit the side, no matter what it is, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. It generally tends to fit the side of censorship, because although you might think it opens up more dialogue and more discussion, what it actually does is it cuts it back because due to moderation tools and whatnot, it gives you parameters for what you cannot and can say, right? And so it socializes people because they automatically think that the topics that are, shied away from on social media are also topics that need to be shied away from just ever talking about. And that's part of the equation. But let's read about this new social app that's coming out. The name of the article, What is Threads? Is Twitter in Danger? This is from the Economic Times. Meta, the company behind social media giants Facebook and Instagram, has launched its new microblogging platform, Threads. What is Threads? The new app bears a striking resemblance to Twitter, allowing users to post text, images, or videos, as well as like, share, repost content. Threads accounts are synced to Instagram at the outset, allowing users to keep their usernames and retain followers. Posts can be up to 500 characters long and include links, photos, and videos up to 5 minutes long. One thing Threads has not copied from Twitter is the ability to message other users directly, but Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg promises there are updates to come. Posting on his new app hours after launch, Zuckerberg wrote, the team did a great job with Threads version 1. A long journey ahead, but a really talented group built a strong foundation. Threads has been branded Meta's Twitter killer. The company has a long history of introducing new features based on the success of rival firms. In 2016, Instagram added a feature called Stories to Instagram, or user posts that disappear after a fixed amount of time, in response to the rising popularity of Snapchat. More recently, the company's new short-form video feature, Reels, has sought to challenge the rise of TikTok. The launch of Threads coincides with a series of decisions by Twitter owner Elon Musk that have sparked controversy, including limiting the number of posts users could see. Threads claims to have acquired 10 million new users overnight, an impressive feat, which included celebrities like J-Lo and Kim Kardashian and a host of corporate brands greeting users on the platform. My goodness, guys. My goodness. Think about who you could be in the company of. You could be in the company of J-Lo, Kim Kardashian, and a bunch of corporate hacks that are going to use the platform to advertise to you. How could you want anything different, guys? How could you want anything different, right? And now, pretty soon the politicians will go and everybody will go, Anyway, however, due to ongoing regulatory concerns, the app is not currently available in the European Union. In May, Meta was hit with a 1.2 billion euro fine by its lead EU privacy regulator over its handling of user information in order to stop transferring users' data to the United States. It remains unknown if or when Threads will be made available in the EU. So there you go. I mean, first of all, we know, from the previous dealings of Meta that, wow, we know that they harvest user data. We know this. Like, it's been, what was it on Facebook? It's like once you posted something on Facebook, I think it was like there forever. Like it was never going to, even if you deleted it, like it still existed in some, database that they were able to, per the user agreement, able to share with companies behind the scenes. I believe that's what it was. But here's the thing. Social media, it's not worth it. Like I said, it socializes you to believe certain things. And it's so funny because this article basically talks about how Meta is just copycatting off of everybody else, right? This is kind of how it's been from the beginning. I mean, Facebook copycatted off of like MySpace in a way. Because Facebook used to just be for colleges. Like you needed a college email or a university email to be able to sign up for an account, right? Well, now it's like it kind of just, copycatted off MySpace, overtook it and was made available to the public. It was a little bit more, user-friendly and everything. And, like, now this is saying, okay, well, they copycatted off of, TikTok to make Reels, and they copycatted off of, what was it? Snapchat to create stories that would disappear after a while. So they're basically just trying to integrate everything into one, platform, and they're trying to become the social media, giant rather than, kind of stick to one thing like those platforms did, and they did them, arguably what I would call well. I mean, TikTok did do it well. I don't like TikTok, but I do have to give them that, is that they actually did, kind of revive a certain brand of video and commentary that was kind of dead. Remember, like, it was kind of like the Vine stuff from the early internet days, they kind of revived that. And they had a lot of, they had a lot of success doing that, I'll say. So, of course, they are even worse than Meta in harvesting data. It just, they harvest pretty much everything, including, what would be called metadata, which is, basically your keystrokes, your contacts, which, they sprawl, it's just spyware that sprawls across your entire network. looking for data to harvest. But, what I'll say is that it kind of just shows social media is, trying to outdo each other right now. Like, people are trying to target Twitter. I don't know how successful this will be. I presume it will be a distant number 2. That's what I presume it will be. Just based on the fact that there have been Twitter challengers, and they've been, only had varying degrees of success. You're not going to have it in the EU, at least at first. They're going to have to, really work to probably get it promoted there. They're going to have to maybe take less user data. And that's just, I don't know that that's something that Zuckerberg wants to give up. So that is, I guess, on the table for you. If you want to go on Instagram, if you have an Instagram account and you want to post, at least you get more characters. So there's that. That was one of my biggest criticisms about Twitter is 280 characters. I mean, this one has 500. So you get to post almost double what you can on Twitter in one post. So there you go. I guess maybe Mark Zuckerberg listened, to one of my podcasts and decided to do, something almost double the length. Let's look at the chat. Yo, what's up, Mog, Starlight, and Chewy? Welcome. This is why we need to stop making influencers famous. I think you have to become at least somewhat famous to be an influencer, right? I'm a famous influencer. I don't know about that. All right. Next story, also related to social media. Maine's top gambling official handed 1-week suspension for offensive tweets. Telling you guys, they come for your job. If you go on Twitter, if you go on social media, they will come for your job. And if you happen to work for a big company, it's probably going to work. Now, this is a gambling regulator, which I guess maybe probably works for the government. I didn't even know Maine had casinos, but apparently they do, or they have some kind of gambling allowed there. Maine's top gambling regulator was punished with a week-long suspension without pay for tweets posted from his personal account about women and a white nationalist group, officials said Friday. Milt Champion, executive director of the Gambling Control Unit, was placed on paid leave May 17th because of the tweets, and Public Safety Commissioner Michael Sawchuk announced the punishment Friday after an investigation. Champion must undergo training on workplace harassment and social media apologies in addition to the 5-day suspensions, Sawchuk said. So here's what I mean. Well, let's read on a little bit, and then we'll stop and discuss. Champion, who will return to work on Monday, apologized for his actions. While the 2 tweets were intended to be humorous, I recognize they were anything but. They were a mistake and an error in judgment, and I apologize for my actions, Champion said in a statement. I thank the employees of the unit for their hard work and commitment in my absence. So here's the thing, guys. If you apologize to the mob, you're done. Okay? Look at what they're doing here. Look at what they're doing. This guy decided to apologize. Okay? He's still going to have to undergo for just 2 tweets, which we're gonna read the substance of in a moment. A training on workplace harassment and social media. So, remember how I said earlier that social media actually socializes you. You think you can say what you want on social media, and that's the goal, but actually what it does is it socializes you. There is a training course. I mean, never mind that he has to go to this training course because, he wants to keep his job. there is a training course for how you should speak on social media. So there is an actual person or group of people that determine what is acceptable and what is not, and they go around making money off of these classes that they give. Okay? So, you know, if you think that you can just go on social media and just, you know, that it's going to be your place to say or do whatever you want, and, you know, you're going to, you know, it's going to be fine. I'm here to tell you it's not. I'm here to tell you you need to pay attention to this stuff, guys. Because, again, it socializes you. It's going to tell you what you can and can't think. Okay? And this is why we see these polls, you know, constantly that are, you know, they start with like really strong support. For instance, like polls on, you know, teaching like, you know, kids about, you know, the LGBT. Well, I don't know. Okay, here, let's do the acronym. We got to make sure we got all the letters. Okay, LGBTYNM, comma, apostrophe, question mark, backslash 0587, star, F10, escape, tab, control, function, Windows key. Never forget the Windows key. That's a very important part of the acronym. Plus sign, number lock, caps lock, down arrow, and tilde. I think I got them all. Okay. So, you know, when you can't teach all of that theory in school, right? That had a big poll of like people wanting to pull out, and now it like slowly, you know, goes in the opposite direction. Again, it's because of socialization from social media, because they're going to tell you what you can and can't say. Okay, they're going to tell you what you can and can't think, and you know, probably most of the people are, you know, that are adults or close to being adult are on social media. I mean, we all know that, you know, young people are probably on it like all the time, right? But the thing is that, you know, probably a vast majority of like, you know, millennials and older are also on it a lot. And so, you know, it slowly erodes the, you know, what I'll say, the threat in your mind, and it makes you start to believe the other direction when, you know, and it kind of gaslights you. And this is what social media is designed to do. Okay? It is designed to, again, socialize you and make you think a certain way. Because if it wasn't, then there wouldn't be these classes. There wouldn't be, you know, anything. There, you know, moderation would be pretty, you know, free. You know, because people would be able to moderate themselves, right? Yeah, that's not the case. The tweets were posted May 6th and May 14th and were later removed, because of course they were. In one of them, Champion tweeted about being told it was inappropriate to refer to women as ladies, and then added a pejorative term for women. In the other, he replied that at least they are not burning down cities and looting stores in response to a tweet about a white nationalist group marching on the U.S. Capitol. So I don't know exactly what the pejorative term for women he would refer to is. I would probably, you know, I don't know, if it was something like bitches and hoes or, you know, something like that. I don't know. But I mean, I find it hard to believe that this guy would refer to, you know, women as, you know, just something so derogatory that it's just, you know, crazy. And when was this published? Oh, July 7th. So May 6th and May 14th. I just want you guys to think about this, okay? May 6th and May 14th, and we're in July. So these tweets have been up, and they were considered completely, irrelevant and everything until just recently, right? So May and even if this story is kind of slow to get to the punch, we have to look at May 6th to May 14th. If it was so outrageous that people were just, burning down cities to, attack this guy and make him know that his tweets were just completely unacceptable, completely disgusting, horrible, etc. If they were that bad, right, then we would have heard about it on May 7th or May 8th. But no, we're hearing about it in July for tweets that were made in May. Okay? So it just means that, again, whatever you write on these social media sites, people will just go back and become outraged. Okay? For no, so why would you open yourself to something like that? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't, the reason, this is not the reason I don't use social media, but for those of you that do, and I know I have quite a few in my audience that refuse to listen to me and still continue to use social media, to this capacity. I'm just going to tell you, like, if you are listening to me and you are not a flaming, raging leftist that just goes along with, whatever Amazon comes out with for the narrative that day, and it trickles down to you, like, if you are not that person that does that narrative and just buys that narrative at face value every time, and you will get outraged, they will come for you. And I'm assuming that most people that can stand listening to my show are at least somewhat, on my side when it comes to issues and whatnot. I'm just letting you know, they will, if you want to post anything like remotely controversial, they're coming for you. Okay, they will. And it could affect your job. You could have to go through training and reprogramming, re-education. And, in some places, like in some countries, like in Canada and whatnot, certain speech, like that is an actual crime that you can be arrested for. So, just letting you know. I guess this guy got off easy because all he has to do is apologize and, say, oh, I'm gonna go through the workplace harassment and social media training, even though I don't know who he harassed at work. But clearly, probably what happened here, because there was such a gap of time, is that he pissed someone off, right? He pissed someone off enough where they decided they were going to get him back. Especially if he's in a position of authority, which it sounds like he is, because he's an executive director. He probably pissed off a lower level employee or something like that, and they said, okay, I'm going to report this because I don't feel safe working under him. But they had to go back 2 months and find these tweets, right? You have to realize, another thing is that letting leftists, and this is for business owners, letting leftists into your organization, like, there's this story that says, like, people with pronouns on their resume don't often get, or they often get overlooked. And I think it's because a lot of people know this, like, unless you work for, like, a progressive company or, a big company like Disney, where they, you have a DEI officer that's looking over these resumes, like, unless you work for a company like that, right, there's a lot of problems. And this is probably exactly what happened, is one of those people, like, just didn't like him and said, I'm gonna get this guy. And so they went back to May and found tweets that they didn't like. Oh, I guess May 17th. Okay, was placed on paid leave May 17th. So again, that's still, I guess the first one wasn't bad enough, right? I wonder why they're doing it this late. Anyway, I think that's what happened because there was, still time in between this. So anyway, they're coming for you. I don't know what JS means. I'm not flaming. You gotta be Emerald Agassi. Mog. Like, isn't he the guy that does BAM or whatever? And then the fire comes up from what he's cooking? Or, I don't know. I think that's that guy. I'm not sure. Okay. Let's move on to another topic. France is roiled by protests after police killed a teenager. Here's why. Coming from NPR. When a police officer shot and killed a teenager named Nahal M. in the Paris suburb of Nanterre on Tuesday, outrage boiled over and spread across France. Protests have gripped big cities as people call for justice, and riots have also broken out, bringing violence, fires, and hundreds of arrests. Saturday night appeared calmer than previous days, with France's Interior Minister reporting 427 arrests as of early Sunday morning local time. A day earlier, more than 1,300 arrests were made in a night of rioting as 45,000 police officers were deployed around the country in an unsuccessful attempt to curb the violence, the Interior Ministry said earlier Saturday. The slain 17-year-old's family has not released his surname, only his last initial. A funeral for Nahal was held Saturday in Nanterre. His killing is now a rallying call in a similar way that George Floyd's murder by a police officer in Minneapolis in 2020 sparked widespread unrest over the police use of force, particularly against minorities. Here's what's happening with the protests and how it all got started. The teenager was shot Tuesday morning. Similar to the Floyd case in the U.S., videos of Nahal's encounter with police have amplified public anger and distrust after eyewitnesses and surveillance video contradicted the official narrative. Nahal was driving a yellow Mercedes when he was shot at close range during a police stop near Nelson Mandela Square around 8 a.m. Tuesday, according to Nanterre Mayor Patrick Jarry. Footage from several vantage points shows that despite early claims that two police officers were in grave danger when one of them opened fire, the pair were standing next to the driver's window when an officer pointed a gun inside before the car began to move past them. "You are going to get a bullet in the head," a voice is heard saying, according to the France 24 news outlet. As the car moves forward, a single shot is heard. Nahal died at the scene. His car rolled forward, coming to a stop after hitting a utility pole. Two other people were in the car with Nahal. One has spoken to police, but the other fled the scene and was being sought by law enforcement, Jarry said. A police officer was taken into custody after the shooting, and on Thursday, prosecutor Pascal Prochet announced a preliminary charge of voluntary homicide against the officer, saying that a review found the legal standard for the officer to use his gun had not been met when he fired at Nahal from close range. The two officers were riding their motorcycles when they attempted to stop the car after seeing it speed through bus lanes, according to France's BFM TV, citing a timeline issued by the prosecutor's office. The car's driver didn't stop until he was cut off by a traffic jam, the prosecutor said. The officer, who acknowledged firing his gun, said he did so for a number of reasons, from the desire to stop the vehicle to fears that the car might hit him or someone else, the newspaper La Montagne reported. Okay. So, let's talk about this a little bit. I want you to, think about things. Now, it's I don't know if it already said in the story, but this teenager was of North African descent, which probably means, I don't know if that means, that he was black or that he was more, Middle Eastern in appearance. What I'm going to say is this. The thing that is very interesting about this is that he, was speeding through bus lanes, right? They were trying to pull him over. Didn't stop. And he didn't stop until he was cut off by a traffic jam. Okay? So, traffic jam, we all know what that is. So, that's where he has to stop, because otherwise he's going to hit other cars. The police pull him over on motorcycles. So, I don't know what was said in the actual, exchange, but I do have to ask this, which is, you've got a 17-year-old driving, like, a yellow Mercedes, which is obviously a flashy car. You got two other people in the car, and, one of them obviously fled. And I just have to ask myself, like, do I think the police officer was rash? Probably. I do. What the police officer said, though, is not really incorrect now, is it? Right? It's not really incorrect. You've got somebody in the car that is, clearly about to go, and he, the officer's pointing a gun at him in the car, right? And he's actually trying to flee the scene still, like, in the car. So he's actually trying to move. So I guess he thinks that the officer isn't going to, shoot him, or he's trying to call the officer's bluff. And, but he's already kind of being, like, reckless with a car. The only reason he stops is because he's forced to stop, right? Now, I would tell my audience, like, if you, are stopped by police, you should definitely pull over, and you should, be polite and friendly. And, if at any point, the police officer makes you feel uncomfortable, or if they're, then you should just quietly, say, hey, I'd really feel better if my lawyer was here. And, if that means you have to, go with them or whatever, then you have to do that, but you just don't speak. You just don't say anything until you're given a chance to speak to a lawyer. And the thing is that the reason that I don't really, feel that, I'm not saying that you should always just be, completely compliant and, with what I will say with, whatever they want you to do, meaning, like, they'll make a request of you, and you should just, obey that request no matter what. But a lot of times you at least have the, the ability, or the, the request of speaking to a lawyer, and, not complying until after you speak with that lawyer. And what I mean by that is, don't be violent, and don't, you need to be friendly, you need to be polite still, but just say, I'd rather really not do that until I speak with my lawyer. And you might get arrested, or, at least taken into custody for that. But the thing is that at least you get to, you will get to speak to a lawyer, and you're not giving them any information beyond, whatever it is that you're, legally obligated to. Now, that's what I would say, and that's not legal advice. That's what I would do, though, if I did not feel comfortable with, what a police officer was asking me, or their requests. Of course, again, I'm probably one of the most boring people, ever. So, I haven't been pulled over in years, and haven't been in trouble with the law anytime recently. But what I would say is that this kid was clearly not being anywhere near compliant, just based on that loose information. He was, driving recklessly through bus lanes. The only reason he stopped was because of a traffic jam, and then he was trying to move the car even when a gun was pointed at him, right? And now you've got, fiery but peaceful protests all over France, and, lots of arrests and whatnot. And I just want to make sure. Okay, this is a different story. And so you've got all this stuff going on. And instead of it's kind of funny because we look back at that tweet that said, at least they're not burning down buildings. Well, this is what they do. This is what the opposite side, even though I'm not really on the Republican or conservative side, but on this issue I kind of am. And it's like, this is what their lack of discipline and the lack of being told no does, is it makes their protests crazy. Like, they just go angry and think that their political opponents, should be jailed, murdered, whatever. And this proves it. I mean, this proves that, if you are in a city that is being burnt to the ground, basically, well, you might as well be arrested, because, your services, the people that you're pretty much going to be under like a curfew if you're, everything around you is burning, right? Like, you are under a curfew of, like, you can't do anything because all these businesses are, out of business, as well as many neighbors are put out of their homes. I mean, fires are not just like easy things to put out, right? They spread, they destroy neighborhoods. If you don't believe me, just drive down Detroit, any of the old bad areas of Detroit one day. They destroy entire neighborhoods. And so, this happened, and we say, oh, it's police brutality. Now, again, I'm not saying that I think the officer probably acted pretty rash, but I also believe that the officer, and anybody in law enforcement probably is, knows the repercussions of having to pull the gun, especially, with that dynamic of I don't know if this officer was white, but a white officer would be pulling or would be shooting a, non-white person, especially a teenager. They know the repercussions, and he felt it necessary to do this anyway. And as we can see, the 17-year-old was not being anywhere near compliant. There were probably some issues, and, now they're just going to say justice, justice, justice. Well, I mean, I don't know. If the kid had been a little bit more compliant, he would still be alive. Just saying, hey, I don't want to talk to you. I need a lawyer. Now, in France, it might be a little bit different, but France is also not a country of totalitarianism where, you go to jail for the rest of your life if you get pulled over by the police for reckless driving, right? Like, that's not something that happens. So this kind of shows you the contrast between different protesters and, how unreasonable these pink-haired freaks are. Because these are the people that are protesting. These are the people, and I call them protests very loosely. I call them, just riots. All right, let's read the chat a little bit. Traffic jams are made by big jelly companies. Have you gotten your COVID-19 jam? Are there boosters? 100% legal advice. No. You can get the legal advice from your lawyer. If you're in a situation like that where you don't feel comfortable, just comply and contact your lawyer. But escalating the situation is not going to do anything but make it worse for yourself. I mean, that's exactly true. Like, most of the time, if you're going to get pulled over, and you just, unless you're driving, unless you're drinking and driving, or you're driving 130 on the expressway or something nuts like that, if you're not, if you're just kind of driving somewhere and you get pulled over for, speed, nothing's really going to happen, and there's all these different, obviously if your license is suspended, things like that, there are things where you shouldn't be driving. You're going to get pulled over and you're going to, you're going to face repercussions. But in those cases, you still just got to comply because, for a suspended license, I don't even know if you go to jail at all, which you probably don't. But if you were to go to jail at all, it would probably be 24 hours or something. It would be very, very minor. The more, the more pleasant you are, the more, leeway you're going to get. And that's what I'm saying, is just politely say, hey, I don't feel comfortable answering these questions. I would like to speak to a lawyer. Again, they might arrest you, but they have to charge you with something. And so, they really can't. So, you're just gonna get freed. They might charge you with, whatever the violation was that you were for traffic, but those really don't rise to the level. So just again, they're just doing their job, and I'm not even a police person. I don't say support, back the blue and all that, because police are just a tool of the government, right? They're just a tool to enforce compliance with whatever laws have been passed. But again, they are doing their job, what they were hired for in most cases. So haven't been pulled over by the law, but castaways, okay. They are literally just destroying local businesses that people, that's what they're doing. And, even Starbucks, that might not be a local business, but, they burn that down too. They aren't protesters, they're soldiers. Yeah, pretty much. They call it detained now. Is that the new politically correct term? What's up, Kent? How you doing, man? Oh, let's see. And what's up, Pearl? Welcome in. All right, let's move on to our next story, which comes from Chewy. He wanted me to talk about this, so he gave me two stories from the Daily Mail. Ben & Jerry's customers call for boycott after woke ice cream makers' July 4th message demanding the U.S. return stolen indigenous land, starting with Mount Rushmore to the Lakota. This 4th of July, it's high time we recognize that the U.S. exists on stolen indigenous land and commit to returning it, the company's account tweeted. Outrage was swift on social media, with many disgusted by what they saw as anti-American sentiment on a day meant to celebrate the United States. The ice cream giant, now owned by British multinational Unilever, has long supported far-left... Yeah, okay, we know that. Ice cream company Ben & Jerry's sparked outrage with a July 4th tweet calling for the United States to return stolen indigenous land, starting with giving Mount Rushmore back to the Lakota Sioux tribe. The company, which was founded by longtime Bernie Sanders allies Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenwood, but has since been sold to Unilever, tweeted the message to its 494,000 followers. Okay, we already read the message. The tweet sparked immediate outrage on social media, with many disgusted customers using the boycott Ben & Jerry's hashtag to slam the message as anti-American sentiment on a day meant to celebrate the United States. Okay, let me say this first. If you are not aware that Ben & Jerry's is Bernie Sanders' communist adjacent. Like, if you are not aware of that, you know, you're probably not much into brand recognition and brand awareness, just because they have been this way for their entire span, right? Like, they've been this way since I was a kid, and, you know, they have never changed. So this is I don't know why they're saying this, comparing it to Bud Light. One commenter compared the statement to Bud Light partnering transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, which resulted in the beer giant losing more. Okay, so yeah, we know that happens and is happening. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't know why this was controversial. I mean, not because, oh, you know, it's not a, you know, patriotic thing to say or whatever, but for a different reason, which is, you know, this is just par for the course for Ben and Jerry's. Like, if I do not buy Ben and Jerry's, I would not buy Ben and Jerry's because, you know, it's just, I mean, there's a difference between certain brands, like, being, you know, a little bit into the, you know, the leftist stuff, or they at least claim that they're not. And then this, I mean, like, no, Ben and Jerry's is not a, there's no secret here. I don't know why people think they are. Anyway, sorry, one sec. Okay. Joseph Massey called them hypocrites for all the cows that had to suffer to make the company's ice cream. First, you need to apologize to the millions of cows you milk without consent. Okay, that's stupid. Kevin Dalton continued on hypocrisy, noting that technically Ben and Jerry's own factories were on stolen land. I look forward to the virtue signaling Ben and Jerry's returning their factories' land to the Abenaki and Mohican Native Americans that have lived in Vermont for 10,000 years. You know, here's the thing. It's like, it really is, like, there are so many places that do this, and they just come up with these, like, sloganeers and, you know, different, you know, blanket statements, like, we should return Mount Rushmore to the Lakota tribe. Okay. So, why are you specifically starting with Mount Rushmore? You know, notice that he didn't say something like, I don't know, Boston, Massachusetts. Notice that he didn't say something like, you know, what's it, like, a part in Canada, you know, for instance. Like, I'm trying to think of different areas. Like, the reason that they say this is because it is something that doesn't matter. Like, a mountain that's kind of, like, uninhabitable and is built up and brings a state like South Dakota, you know, very red state. I think that's where it is. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. Yeah, it's in South Dakota. I haven't been there personally, but I wanted to make sure before I made the assertion. It makes South Dakota, you know, it's a tourist spot for South Dakota and whatnot. And it's like, well, what are they gonna do? Build houses? Build a casino on Mount Rushmore? Like, I don't know what they're gonna do. You know what I mean? Like, it's so ridiculous to say something like this, right? It's just a ridiculous type of virtue signal. But, you know, they have a Twitter, so they have to share it on Twitter. And it makes no sense, and it really has no you know, repercussions to what they're saying. So, yeah. Hot take, but they aren't wrong with how the U.S. treated the Indians. You mean like with the stealing and whatnot? I mean, because you're right. I mean, it was an expansion effort, and it ended up being a war. But the thing is like, what are they going to do? Like, what are they going to do? What are a lot of these people just aren't willing to give up anything, right? For what they virtue signal about. So, for instance, the people that virtue signal about like reparations, for instance, right? They virtue signal about this, but then what they don't realize is that that money has to come from somewhere. So if you just want to write checks to descendants of slaves, what you have to do is you have to overtax people. You have to tax other people, and you have to do it in an unfair type of way, where you're not taxing the people that you're giving reparations to as much as you're taxing the people that are paying for that, right? And so you have to specifically administer it in that type of way. And you also have to do it in a way that doesn't hurt the people. This is two separate ideas. So like you have one way where you're saying, okay, you're only taxing this group of people to bring it to this group of people. But you also, for instance, let's say you do that to business owners, and the business owners that you're taxing all happen to be in like a black neighborhood, right? So, which are mostly going to be the descendants of slaves. Well, then you also have to do it where those business owners aren't inflating their prices in that community, which is basically just recycling the money, right? Like, it's just like, okay, well, sure, you got this check, but now we're just going to take more of what you're getting. You have to do it that way, right? And so trying to work with that, like these people that virtue signal about that never really want to give a solution, right? They always want to make a committee that studies it, but they never really give a solution for that type of a proposal. And I just want you to notice that anybody that virtue signals but doesn't really have any ideas, like we should just give back the land, we should just give Mount Rushmore. It's like, okay, then what? Okay, here you go. Here's Mount Rushmore back. Like, a place that's probably mostly uninhabitable, that's already been built up as a like, are you going to give it to them to make money off of? Like, you have to, are you going to just say, okay, you can have it, but you have to keep what we did to it, like, in place? Is that what you're going to do? Like, because that's the only way it would actually work, right? Like, okay, if you gave it to them as an asset and said, okay, now you can run it, but you are essentially saying you are required now to run Mount Rushmore. So, I don't know. No solutions, just empty platitudes, empty virtue signaling. Again, this is what Twitter and everything else is filled with, is empty platitudes, virtue signaling, just do this and do that. But then again, the opposite reaction to it for, Republicans and people that are against this kind of thing is also silly, because it's just people that apparently have lived under a rock and don't know that Ben and Jerry's is Bernie Sanders adjacent socialism, our socialists, basically. I don't know why they don't know this. And they wouldn't be supporting this company anyway. This is basically the same thing. Just an article that says, that this the Native American chief in Vermont has called out Ben and Jerry's for having headquarters on indigenous land. We kind of just read that in the previous article, but again, it's just the biggest example I can think of is climate activism. The people will say that you should be forced to use paper straws. You should be forced to only have certain types of packaging, and that you should constantly make small changes on your own, but they'll never talk about not using their private jet, or changing like government and certain policies to stop using private jet travel to go places. They will never talk about for instance, like turning up their own air conditioning to prevent the escape of the air toxins that go up. And there's an acronym for it, but it escapes me at the moment. The air toxins that are released from that. They will never do those things, because if it's hard on them or whatnot, they don't want to do it. They only want to do it if it's convenient, and it is something that they can virtue signal over. It's the only time they're going to do it, guys. So, again, unless they're also offering a solution and like anything around that solution, you pretty much just have to dismiss anything that you read on Twitter and whatnot. You shouldn't be reading Twitter anyway, but is that what it is, Kent? If you think about it, we're all honored. Sapien supremacists. We killed off the Neanderthals. It's called war and conquering. It has always happened and will continue to happen. They want to erase America. That's why he chose a monument. Yeah, probably. I mean, because it's symbolizing of that Lincoln Top Hat motel and casino. There you go. And it's a motel. It's got the outside doors too. Especially being on a mountain, like people get snowed in. Today I learned that I live under a rock. Well, I don't know. Maybe Naples is under a rock. I don't know. All right. Let's move on. Disney star dragged online after asking fans for money in Apple laptop raffle. Now, this isn't really a pertinent story. It's the next one that I want to get to, but it kind of sets up the the story about Disney, and I just found this kind of comical, so we'll talk about this. Former Disney Channel actress Sky Jackson is being ridiculed online after asking fans to pay a $5 fee to be entered into a raffle for an Apple MacBook computer. Jackson, 21, explained the giveaway and consequently defended herself on TikTok Live, because TikTok Live is definitely where you need to go in order to get the most intellectual conversations ever. Like, if you want to have, if you want to hear the smartest people on Earth and you want them to talk to you, you definitely want to go to like TikTok Live. Instagram Live is like close second. People that go on these sites are definitely very intelligent people. It is not that serious for a damn $5. It is called a raffle. I don't know if you guys have been to school before, but I know I've been to school, and we used to have raffles all the time, she said pointedly. Seemingly responded to a comment about the fees, Jackson continued, the money goes towards the prize, and like I said, if there's anything left over, I'm doing a second giveaway soon, so that's what it's going toward. Okay, here's the thing. It's gambling then, so just call it that. You are gambling. You're putting up $5 to hopefully get, a MacBook or whatever. Why would you do that? like what makes it important for, like, the thing is like, as a celebrity, you have to be, it's generally perceived that you are somewhat well off, okay? And if you are, then the purpose of a raffle, at that level, is to say, hey, I want to give back to the community, kind of a thing. Like, I want to give back to the people that have supported me. So, here's a raffle. You might make people pay $5, but then you give it to charity, right? So, you say, hey, the $5 is, like I said, pretty much just going to charity or going to some cause. That's the reason you do it, is to raise money for that. And then you give away because it probably represents a very tiny fraction of the net worth that you have, and it also thanks somebody for giving to charity. They can be recognized and shown who it is, and who's gonna get it, and whatnot. This is just gambling, because it's like, well, I'm assuming that $5. Okay, you collect $5 from 20 people. That's $100. You collect it from 100 people, that's $500, right? How much is a Apple MacBook computer? Let's find out. I don't even know. $12.99. I guess. That looks about right. So anywhere from $12.99 to $2,000, basically. So, if you have 400 people enter the raffle, you've paid for it. I'm assuming she's expecting more than 400. I don't know. It just seems very I don't know. It seems tacky to me. As a celebrity, I would think that you'd want to give back to your audience, and you'd want to thank people for supporting you, helping you, being with you for whatever, and so you're giving tickets to anybody that signs up for your email list, or whatever, like, or like I said, if they pay $5, it goes to a charity, it goes to a certain cause. Not what she's doing. It's just gambling. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I wanted to kind of use that to jump into, this was a former Disney star, so I wanted to use that to jump into Disney, and we're going to talk about The Little Mermaid, which was, a remake of the classic animated film. So we'll talk about this a little bit, which ties into the previous subject of the Ben and Jerry's thing, I think, pretty well. So, let's see. A deadline piece on The Little Mermaid has buried the lead. Disney might actually lose money on this one. The gist of the issue when it comes to The Little Mermaid is that it's doing well domestically, but overseas, not so much. The film has a reported $250 million budget cost and $140 million global marketing spend. The Little Mermaid could very well break even, but it won't make much of a profit. Anything in the low 400 million global threshold, and this fish is apt to be sinking to a loss of around 20 million. And here's the thing, guys. Like, when they talk about the box office, you don't, that's not all profit, right? Like, that's not all going into the pockets of Disney. Like, obviously there's a lot of overhead costs, and the movie theater, and the host of that gets to keep some of it. There's a commission in some cases. So it's like, this is just the overall amount, right? It's not like the, minus overhead costs, which are built in to the, to the ticket pricing. And so that's just how much it makes domestically. And this article actually talks kind of positively, but if you look into like other articles, you can see that the cost is actually, it's costing Disney a lot more than this. But I wanted to go with the most charitable thing that I could, while not being like, just overwhelming heaps of praise. So Disney's last live action feature, Aladdin, back in 2019, did very well with a 1.05 billion worldwide gross. The problem is that Little Mermaid's China ticket sales are weak. That country is, supposedly, very angry that a black actress took over the role of Ariel the Mermaid. Little Mermaid had a strong start domestically, nabbing 118.8 million over the 4-day Memorial Day holiday. Deadline is saying that the backlash the film has received is not exclusively just a China thing. They also cite Korea, China, France, and Germany. This weekend, Little Mermaid will face off against... Okay, so this is an older article. Best case scenario for Little Mermaid is that it breaks even, at least from theatrical revenues, despite a really good opening domestically. I don't blame the casting, I blame the high budget. 250 million is ridiculous. That's the same reason why the 340 million costing Fast X might not turn out a profit as well. Okay, so here's the thing, because a lot of people think that we're talking, like, when we talk about there's this like meme that goes around sometimes, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a SpongeBob meme where you've got like SpongeBob looking at two books or whatever, and one of them's like how to not be a racist is on one side, and you've got the other side that's like why or how to criticize the Little Mermaid movie without sounding racist or something. Like it's something like that. And there are questions sometimes that are asked that are like, well, why, how can you, sound like, how can you criticize the movie without sounding racist or whatnot? And then there are also questions about, do you think that, it's okay that she's like just the best person for the job, and that, all this. And so here's what I'm going to say. First of all, this is a Disney property, or Disney intellectual property. Disney can do whatever it wants with the movie and the characters and anything in it, and they can change it and they can do all kinds of things, and I'm sure we all know that, and that's fine. They can do whatever they want, and it is not a bad or good thing. What I'm going to say is that Disney is just a very soulless company that has been marred with different types of controversy and woke values and all this, all the rigmarole. And why would you support anything that they do these days? Anything. And trust me, there's a lot of stuff that Disney on the entertainment level has worked its way into, right? So like Disney, obviously owns like Hulu, they own, I think it's ABC, they own portions of Fox, they own ESPN, I think. There's another subscription service that I think they own. They own Disney Plus, obviously. They have theme park, like they're trying to basically become like the premier for entertainment in like all facets of life. Marvel and DC, they own one or both. I don't know. But the thing is that why would you support the company anyway? Like, why would you support the company in the current state that they're in, right? They're not, it's not just the Little like, if you just say, I'm not going to go see the Little Mermaid, but then you just, support Hulu and you do all the subscription services and, go to ABC for your news and, watch ESPN. Well, then you're really just supporting their other ventures. You're really not taking much money away from them besides the price of a ticket sale. Right? And you're encouraging their behavior just in different ways. So they continue to encroach upon what you're doing, but that's not really what I want to talk about here. What I want to talk about is, just why you have to just let people think what they're going to think. You cannot respond. If you want to talk about this movie and you say, I really don't like the fact that they, changed the race. The correct and the most compelling argument for it, for them not changing the race, would obviously be the fact that what they're doing is actually an insult, because their live action series have not performed as well. Even though this article talks about the Aladdin, it doesn't perform as well as like the animated, when you adjust for inflation and everything. So when you talk about when these and the other thing I would ask about is, like, you remember Aladdin, and a lot of my audience is going to remember Aladdin, and do you remember like Robin Williams and how animated he was as the genie, and Jasmine and Aladdin singing like A Whole New World and all this other stuff? Like, if you go to like the live action, I couldn't tell you anything. I have listened to one of the songs. I think I listened to Will Smith, and it, doing as the genie, and it's just not catchy. It's not interesting. And so to me, it's always like Disney is kind of anticipating that it's not gonna do as well, and so they say, okay, we're gonna throw this person a bone, and we're gonna race swap a character, right? So they do a race swap of a character, kind of giving her an original character, because maybe they think that she on her own as a new original character wouldn't be able to garnish the same amount of support as the pre-built-in audience that you have for The Little Mermaid. And so it's kind of just like a backhanded compliment. It's still an insult, but you're working for Disney and you're doing this like multi-million-dollar project, right? And it's a lot of recognition and fame, and so she's not going to turn it down, even if she kind of recognizes that. But the other reason that that that's true is because this is what they lead with. This is what they lead with in pretty much every article, and it's always talked about. Well, what about the people that have a problem with race swapping? And like one of the things that this actress had talked about was, well, now little black and brown girls will be able to see themselves in a movie. Kind of building up her own like image as like you're projecting yourself onto, little girls are projecting themselves onto your character. From what I remember about the original movie, Ariel was a spoiled brat that had pretty much everything and was the daughter of a king, right? And she has everything handed to her, and then she sees some guy and says, oh, I'm in love with him. He also happens to be a prince, right? And so she goes and sees this like evil, shady sea witch, makes a really dumb decision to go see some, crazy lady that gives her a potion and gives her all these rules for some reason. Gives up her voice and goes to the surface, and then fails in her mission. So she doesn't even do what she set off to do, even though, granted, the sea witch did kind of sabotage her to an extent, but she still didn't actually do it. And then they end up killing the Sea Witch, even though she has a contract with the Sea Witch. They kill her. Well, I mean, granted, Ursula did go kind of crazy and like took over the ocean after that. Like, I guess that would be kind of a problem if you were, trying to conduct business in the world or whatever. Like if some crazy sea witch was, controlling the oceans. But, anyway, like Ariel wasn't the person that I would want my daughter to be looking up to. Like, again, you look at certain aspects of the characters in these movies. I mean, when we go to Aladdin, what was Aladdin? Like, he was a thief. He stole, and like the whole first part of the movie is about him stealing and like disrupting merchants and doing all, and it's like it's shown as virtuous, right? It's shown as virtuous in the movie that he's like stealing from merchants, avoiding the guards, all this stuff. And the only reason that he, ascends to a better level of life is because he meets Princess Jasmine, who, happens to fall in love with him. Right? And that's kind of, how the movies go. Like all the Disney movies, the main character is usually a heavily flawed character, but their flaws are presented as virtuous. So these are not people that I would want my kids to project themselves onto, right? And yet she's saying that a young black girl or brown girl could project themselves onto the role of a king's daughter that has everything that she wants, but wants more. I mean, that's introduced in the first song she sings, right? That's a spoiled brat. Like, I don't know why anybody would want to project themselves or their offspring onto that. And it's bizarre that, that's an argument that is used, right? And so whenever they come up with these things, if you ever say anything in response to like you don't appreciate you don't appreciate the fact that they race swap somebody, inevitably what they will do, even if whatever arguments they use at first are invalid, what they will inevitably do is call you a racist. And the thing that you have to do is you just can't respond to that. You cannot accept that premise of that argument. You just can't do it, because what it does is it just derails you, because now where they can get you is if you have to defend yourself against being a racist rather than defending your original argument. The original argument is that is insulting to black people. It's actually racist on their part to do that, to give them a hand-me-down character, and say, oh, here's an established character that, has a built-in audience. You just get to inherit it. Right? And because of that, that's the argument. But what they want to do is they want to get into you're a racist, and therefore you have to defend yourself against my accusation of you being a racist before we can even get into a deeper conversation. And that's like trying to convince a fish that they don't need water, okay? Because, again, these people hate you. Like, they already hate you. So trying to convince them that you're not racist, they're already starting from the premise of you being a racist. So the only thing that you can do at your most successful level, the most you can do, the absolute most you can do, is convince them that you are a little less racist than they think you are. That's it. So why would you argue and try to score points in that area when it's like you might go from a -10 to a -7 in their mind. Like, it's not worth it, right? And when you don't accept the premise, just like I didn't accept the premise last week or 2 weeks ago, of that troll that came in and was like, talking about the transgender thing, and and I had said, well, if you're a woman, you're a woman. If you're a man, you're a man. Why wouldn't you just call yourself, if you were truly thought you were, the opposite sex, and you did everything that you could do to be the opposite sex, why wouldn't you just call yourself that? Why would you have to continue to call yourself trans? And, I said it shouldn't be being done to kids. And then they said, well, tell that to the 86 medical associations or whatever. And I said, okay, they're built to make money. Like, they're not going to deny, they are specifically built to make money, to tell people that, they will always want to sell procedures and do things like that. They always want to get involved, because getting involved, if they convince you that you need them, then they make money, right? And if they morally can do it, that's even better for them. So when I said, yeah, I don't really care what they have to say, there's a motive for them saying that, and I said, it doesn't really matter what they say. That's when they went off the rails, and then they told me to go kill myself, right? Because they can't deal with that. They can't deal with that argument, because I don't have to defend myself against being transphobic, because I just don't really care. I don't really care that they think I'm transphobic, right? It doesn't really bother me. So that's just a trap that you need to look out for, is you can't accept the premise of their argument. Because if you do, then you have already lost the argument. Hey Mukosaurus, how you doing? Welcome. Yeah, they used to, right? Smoking used to be really healthy and good for you, and All right. We've got one more story. And it's fun. Mog submitted a different story, which I have a lot to say on, so we'll do that next week, because it's relevant. It will also be relevant next week, so we'll do that next time. But this was the second story that Mog, and I know this one's going to be short, and then we'll get to a few questions from the audience, and we'll be out of here for the night. So this is: Walmart customer makes mind-boggling discovery after opening pickup grocery order. I hate it. Most of us are familiar with the frustration of having what seems like a million plastic bags in our pantry. You collect the bags, stash them in the pantry, and mostly forget about them until they start to overflow and clutter up your kitchen. Is exhausting. For me, I don't, because they're really good for scooping up Black Tiger's litter. And then also, they're really good for, I usually take a yogurt, banana, and a couple other things to work every day. So they're really good for me because, and I usually actually run out of them far more often than I have an excess. But I wanted to talk about this other thing. But one Redditor has had enough. They recently called out Walmart pickup orders where they received every single item on their list in a separate plastic bag. The post originally appeared in extremely infuriating, where the Redditor explains that their recent items all came in their own bags. Such a waste, the original post reads. Another user saw the image and thought it also deserved a share in the anti-consumption forum, where users were just as disgusted with the blatant waste. Plastic bags aren't just annoying to deal with and get rid of, but they're also especially bad for the environment, namely because they're extremely hard to recycle. Most recycling centers, like the ones that will pick up your plastics at the curb, don't accept plastic bags because they get stuck and jam the machinery. This often leads to them being tossed in the trash, and even when they're disposed of properly, only about 5% of plastic trash is ever recycled, which has led some to call plastic recycling a failed concept. So this is the funny thing, is I know exactly what this person is talking about, like, because I occasionally do the Walmart pickup order stuff. I try not to support Walmart over like Publix or anything, more local. But sometimes I do because just it is convenient to be able to pick up stuff. But it's so funny because they have so much. They do this. They actually put like I have this all the time. Like I will order my week's worth of yogurts, and they will put one yogurt in one bag, two yogurts in another bag, one yogurt. I mean, like I will get 3 or 4 bags sometimes with each yogurt, and like it will be different items in like some bags will just be filled, and then like but I will get inevitably every single time at least 1 or 2 bags that have just one item in them, and these are from the same departments, because I have to assume like a lot of times they have multiple shoppers, and the shoppers are just going to their departments that they know, and that's my assumption. But it's funny because like I will have 3 or 4 dairy things, and they will all come in their same bag, in a different bag. I mean, it is annoying because it just makes carrying in bags yeah, but more annoying, especially because I don't have a close walk. But it is funny that a lot of people are or that people actually have called this out. It is pretty funny, I will say. An argument from authority isn't the Uno +4 draw card people think it is all the time. I mean, the thing is about an argument from authority is you have to examine motives. And a lot of people don't do that, especially with the medical industry. Because the medical industry has this aura around it where it's like, are you a doctor? Do you work in the medical industry? If you don't, then you just don't know anything, right? You just don't know anything, and you just have to accept whatever people are giving you, right? Like, because they know better, they're smart and you're not, that kind of a thing. And the fact of the matter is that it is I would say a ridiculous notion that you cannot criticize the medical industry just because you're not a part of it. That you can't see that people that are designed to make the medical industry more money would have completely objective standards and trying to expand the medical industry, right? That doesn't make any sense. And there is a lot more profit in the surgeries and procedures and everything that you get from that particular type of medical disorder, or whatever you want to call it, than there would be otherwise. So yes, I fully expect medical industries to side with people that want to get those procedures and pay, even as children, because I mean you got to think about it this way too. It's like we see the medical, whenever you see a medical ad for like a prescription drug, they'll be like, ask your doctor about this, and then they will have like a 20-second segment in a minute commercial that goes over the side effects, right? And they'll say them really fast. And then they want you to believe that hormone blockers in kids don't have any side effects. They have none. None. They're completely fine for everybody. If you want them, they're fine. And if you don't, trust people, then, you're a medical science denier and you deserve to, go die in a corner somewhere. That's it. Okay. Costco. See, I don't know. I know Costco. I've heard a lot of good things, and I've seen people buy a lot of stuff from Costco. Hang on one second, guys. I gotta make these little. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll do that in a little bit. Yeah, there absolutely is, Mucosaurus. There absolutely is. I mean, it is, and, instead of kids just being kids, no, we have to say they're trans at 3 when they're 3 years old. Because a 3-year-old knows that they're trans. I mean, I wouldn't trust a 3-year-old with anything, especially choosing their gender. Anyway, let's go over we have a few questions today from the audience, and I also want people to ask questions. You can ask questions by going to this link. You can do it completely anonymously. We're gonna get to the 3, and I, after this, will not have any more questions. So if you want to submit, I encourage you to submit questions. All right, Mog, we'll do that at the end, I promise. I encourage you all to submit questions to this, because I have run out of questions after tonight, and so we will, I will answer more, and having more queued up is good. Sorry, I just need to do this real quick, so give me 1 second here. We'll go over the questions. This is kind of time sensitive, so I have to do something real quick. Okay, that's done. Okay. Yeah, so if you go to that, you can do that. You can submit your question. It will be completely anonymous. Go ahead and continue to be anonymous, because, it helps me to not know where the question's coming from. And when I don't know where the question comes from, then there's no bias in my answer. I'm just able to answer the question as, honestly as possible, because I know some of you disagree with me on certain topics, and that's completely fine. So you might ask about that topic and get my thoughts, and if I don't know where it's coming from, then I don't have to, qualify or do anything like that, and that's helpful. So, the first question we have: if you had to indicate the most difficult emotion to control, which one is it and why? Well, I would say that the most difficult emotion to control, and I don't know if you consider this an emotion, but it would be anger. Obviously people will do rash things when they're angry. If you happen to be like, like, for instance, like if you're drunk and happy, you might be, you kind of just go with the flow, and but when you're drunk and angry, like, people can get abusive, people can, go out and do all kinds of, different acts against people, and become really destructive. Anger is something that I think a lot of people have trouble controlling, and part of it is because a lot of us don't have I would say, like, the opportunity to get angry very often, right? You can get frustrated a lot, obviously with, like, customer service and whatnot, but getting angry, like, for instance, when we look at the riots in France, people are angry over that, and so they're going out and doing things that don't coincide, and necessarily equate to their anger, kind of a thing. So yeah, I think anger is probably the most difficult. Thoughts on casual misandry on Twitch? I've noticed in some streams I like to hang out in that it's okay to joke about men being trash, etc. But heaven forbid you joke about women, you'll be insulted, banned, or timed out. One day I saw a mod for a streamer say, men, and then somebody else put women, That message got deleted, but the one about men didn't. I wanted to ask why it was okay to insult men but not women, but I think I would have got a lot of flack sent my way. All right. So I want to say one thing. First of all, it's not misandry, and we're gonna talk about this a little bit. This one will be kind of a little bit of a long form answer. It's not misandry, and I'll tell you why. The thing about the reason that it is one of the well, let me say this first. One of the things that qualifies you as kind of a leftist is one thing that you have to believe, and you are necessarily forced to believe this, is about there is a hierarchy in society. And the hierarchy begins with, like, you know, white men are on top. And then you've got, like, white women. And then you've got, you know, people of color. And then, you know, like, it goes all the way down. And so, obviously, when it comes to a different... You've got kind of the hierarchy that way. But then that hierarchy expands horizontally as well. So you've got things like, for instance, if you're disabled, if you've got mental disorders, if you have, you know, which I guess the first one I'm referring to is a physical disability, and then if you've got mental disorders, if you have, for instance, you know, if you happen to be part of the, you know, that acronym spectrum, if you happen to be on the autism spectrum, if you happen to be, you know, basically it's all these, like, you are forced and you are in a certain type of class based on what and how many of these different attributes you possess. Okay? And so the thing that you have to realize is that because men are on a hierarchy above women, right, in their hierarchy standards, that would cause them to believe that it's kind of like punching down. So men are, you know, when you say things like women, it's like punching down. It's sexist because they believe in the power, you know, in the misogyny. It's power plus prejudice, right? So they have a perceived notion that the men have the power and the women do not. And so that is why you're being censored, is because they happen to have this belief. Now, they may not be able to say it in those terms. You know, some of the more eloquent, you know, people will probably be able to explain it to you, and they will actually lay out that. They may not say it like I did. They may say it as, you know, more positive sounding, but ultimately that's what it's going to sound. That's what it's going to be at the end of the day, is that there's a power structure, and, you know, those that are in power shouldn't be punching down to those that aren't in power. So we get back to the mod deleting the comment of women, right? Well, here's the thing. The mod necessarily has to believe that saying that is punching down on women, correct? So men saying women is like it's wrong, because it's you know, they have the power, you know, the men have the power, so therefore the women do not. So is it a form of misandry? No. Because you have to believe that women are less than men. So what is it? It's a form of misogyny. So the thing is that they actually believe that women are so fragile and such, you know, creatures that are just, you know, so tired and ache, and they need that man, that moderator, to come and save them, because they can't possibly be strong enough to endure the criticism of a man. Now, they're not going to say it like that. they're going to say it in the terms of, because it's an insult to women, because, women are awesome and it's just inappropriate, and they're going to be pretty vague about that kind of a thing. And what it's going to revert to is that at some point they're just going to call you a misogynist and ban you. Okay? But we kind of see this, and this is a point that I've been meaning to bring up and I haven't. Like, even in the trans community, right? Like, it is we see like Dylan Mulvaney walk around, and a lot of people like that, and they talk about, trans issues, and they're a trans woman and all that, and trans women are women and all this. And here's the thing, you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, if you were suffering from gender dysphoria, or you really actually had a belief that you were the opposite gender, correct? If you actually believed that, why would you have to qualify yourself after you started being the opposite gender? Why would I have to say, I am a trans woman, rather than saying I am a woman? I wouldn't want to qualify myself that way. When I transition, if I'm being in HR, not as much anymore, but when if I was transitioning someone from a lower level position to a higher level position, or a lateral move, right? If I'm doing that, eventually I'm not going to say they are the, technician that's transitioning to become the field supervisor, for instance. I wouldn't do that. I would say that for a time, but then eventually they would just be the field supervisor. I wouldn't say they are a trans field supervisor, right? I wouldn't do that, because they're not, they were something. They were training to become the other thing, then they became that thing. So I would not qualify that. And yet they continue to do so. And so you have to wonder why they have to qualify themselves as trans rather than just a woman or a man. Think about it. Think about it. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Thoughts on bondage, nudity, and pride parades? This is the last question, by the way. Okay, here's the thing. I don't know why you would be proud. Well, first of all, let's dial it back a little bit. I am not proud, like, as a gay person, I'm not proud of being gay. Not ashamed of it. Don't care. It's just something that exists. It's just something that I am. And so I don't go around talking about my sexuality to anybody. Like, I just don't do it. The person that needs to know would be my partner, right? When and if I find one. And I would presume that they are also that. If they're not, then we've got a problem. But the thing is that I have never considered it something I'm proud of, just because it is something that I feel that, or at least in my experience, has never changed. I've never been curious about, women, as far as, a sexual interest. I've never been curious, as far as, I've never found a woman attractive. I find the human body beautiful, and I find it beautiful on a man and a woman, but I have never been attracted to a woman, right? And that also goes for personality traits. I'm attracted to the simplicity of men. Men are very, simple as far as minds go in general. So, men's emotions are a little bit more raw, um, and men also tend to, just be more informational as far as like pertinent information. And women are really in general very good at, discussion, being oriented with details, being oriented with, for instance, like, when I say details, I mean like, even minor things uh, like a lot of women will, they're able to multitask better. I was gonna say a lot of women are like able to find very small things that elude men, a lot, and that's excellent, and that's something I admire, in women, but it's not something I'm necessarily attracted to. And so the thing is that, um, I have to qualify all of what I'm going to say about pride, because I don't understand why you have to, I don't understand the whole pride movement as being, having some kind of pride, but I also don't understand the movement of, why they introduce, like being naked, nudity, all that stuff. Like, even in, different, for instance, like the Black Lives Matter protests, um, you know, Occupy Wall Street, like these people did not get naked in general. Obviously there's probably a few instances, like for instance, some of those like with the Black Lives Matter, for instance, they were doing like different demonstrations of like African, like dancing and movement and whatnot. And in those demonstrations, they were being, um, the word escapes me, but they wanted to make it genuine, so they dressed up, and a lot of times that didn't involve a lot of clothing, and so, but that is an artistic expression, not just one that is, just I'm riding bicycles in front of kids naked like they did in Toronto at the Pride Festival, right? So why people get naked, I don't understand. You know, I guess you might be proud of your body, but that's not really what pride is for, right? Like, you can go run shirtless, as a guy, or, with a bikini top as a woman down the street if you're really proud of your body. Like, you don't need a festival, to do that. And you will get looks, from all kinds of people that will admire your body, assuming it's a good body, right? So if you're proud of that, then you can do that. And even if you're proud of it, and you're like a fat activist or something, like you can do that as well if you want to. And maybe people will, you probably won't, well, you probably might get more looks, but maybe not the kind of looks that you would anticipate. But the whole thing is what I would say is, my thoughts on it is that it doesn't make sense. Around children, it's, completely ridiculous. Ridiculous being a very minor word for what I would want to say. And it just doesn't get the message that you would want to get across. I'd want to be taken seriously. And, to run around naked in a parade, unless it's under a very specific context, like it's not very effective. And that's the whole thing with, these contexts do not fit the bill for what I would call a very specific context. So my thoughts on it is that it's unnecessary. it's often inappropriate, and it isn't effective. And that is the show. Let's get the last minute chats in here. Hang on one sec. Let me get to it. Oh yeah, I'll give her a treat. And there's no fat shaming in this chat. We love all body types. Yep. Much anger in him. Pathway. Cease and desist from Disney. Yeah. I'm sure. I think Twitter actually sent Threads a cease and desist letter recently. Is a VOD on casters? Yeah. White man on top. That'd be good. So Mucosaurus, I do 3. So I will be getting the I do 3 every time, and it takes some time for it to notify me. So if you just submitted one, I will have it ready for next week if you just submitted one. But I do 3 every week. Yeah, and I don't know if your schedule permits you to be here next week. If you can't, I will, I'll have the VOD, and if you submitted it, it'll probably be like the first one or the second one, depending on how many people submitted it. Tim cured you of clowns. Okay. All right. Time for the treat. Hang on one second. We'll make the camera big. She happens to be right here, so. Yeah, of course. All right. Let me find. There they are. Okay. You want one, baby? Come here. Come here. Oh, it's okay. It's all right. Who trusts the medical industry anyway? Come here, baby. You want a treat? You want a treat? Say hi. Say hi to your fans. Say hi. Oh, she's purring now. She wants it, though. She wants the treat. Are you a good girl? Huh? Are you a good girl? Oh. She must have dropped some crumbs on my fingers. Because now she's licking them. Oh, she's biting it. Why are you biting me? Ow. Ow, baby. Are you a good girl, huh? See, your fans love you. Your fans love you. All right. Well, it is time to go. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We appreciate it, both of us. We'll be back next week, and we'll be here with more politics. I'm sure some wacky and crazy things will happen, and we'll be back to discuss more. You guys, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. I will see you all next time. Until then, take care. Have a great evening.